If you are around 45 and your retirement balance feels too small to admit out loud, here is the median for your age group. About $67,800. Not $678,000. Not $678 million. $67,800. If you had been measuring yourself against people who seem to have it completely figured out, the data says most of them are standing right where you are. And knowing exactly where you stand changes what your next 20 years should actually do. If you are 40 to 55 feeling behind on retirement and you have spent any time comparing your balance to numbers you read online, this is not a discipline problem. It is a measurement problem. You have been looking at the wrong number. The math behind this is stranger than the headline suggests. And once you see it, the shame lifts. Let me show you why. We need to start with the number most people actually see. You open an article, maybe a retirement planning guide, maybe a financial news site. The headline says the average retirement savings for Americans aged 45 to 54 is around $188,000. You look at your own account. You have $67,000, maybe $80,000, maybe $110,000. And you feel the gap. You feel it in your stomach. 188,000 minus what you have is the number that follows you around. That feeling is real. But the number producing it is a mirage. This is what I call the mean mirage. The average retirement balance for your age group is $188,643 according to Vanguard's How America Saves 2025 report. But averages are not honest. A small number of people have very large accounts. One person in your age bracket with $2 million in their 401k does not make you richer. But they absolutely make the average higher. They pull the number up the way a single skyscraper raises the average height of a neighborhood. The buildings around it are still 2 stories. So what happens when you remove the skyscrapers? You get the median. And the median for your age group is $67,796. That is the number that tells you what the person in the exact middle of the data actually has. Half the people in your age bracket have more than $67,796. Half have less. If you have $67,000 saved at 45, you are not behind the average person. You are the average person. You are the median. You are the middle of the distribution. Let that land for a second. The number you have been comparing yourself to, the one making you feel like you failed, is inflated by people with 10 times your balance. The real benchmark is the number in the middle. And the number in the middle looks a lot like what you have. I want you to hold that while I show you the second piece of this. This is Salary to Strategy, where we run the actual numbers instead of the headline numbers. If you want one of these, every week hit subscribe. Here is where the story gets more interesting. Knowing you are at the median is useful. It removes the shame, but the median is not the destination. It is the starting line. The question I want to answer is this. What does $67,800 actually become between now and age 65? Let me put 2 lines on a graph. They start at the same point, $67,800. Age 45. The first line represents what happens if you never add another dollar. You just let the compound growth run. At a 7% real annual return, which is the historical inflation-adjusted average of a diversified stock portfolio, that $67,800 grows to roughly $262,000 by age 65. That is 20 years of compounding with 0 new contributions. The line climbs slowly at first, then steeper, then steep again. By year 20, the slope is nearly vertical. Now the second line, you are 45. You keep contributing. Even $400 or $500 a month, which is not heroic. Saving that is a modest, consistent contribution from someone in their peak earning years. Over 20 years at 7%, that monthly amount adds approximately another $260,000 on top of the base. The 2 lines together reach somewhere around $520,000. That is not the full picture, so let me be direct about the limits. That number is before taxes on withdrawal from a traditional 401k. It does not include Social Security, which for most people in this age bracket will add meaningful income on top. It also assumes consistent returns, which markets do not actually deliver smoothly. The real number could be higher. It could be lower. What it cannot be is zero. The compound engine is already running. Now here's where most people expect me to say good news. You are fine, you can relax. I am not going to say that. Not quite. You might be thinking, Fane, if I am at the median, why does any of this matter? If most people are here, maybe most people are okay. That is the objection I want to address directly. Because the median tells you where you are relative to your peers. It does not tell you where you need to be relative to your own life. And those are two completely different calculations. Most people at 45 have never actually run their own number. They have read articles that say you need $1 million or 2 million or some round number that came from nowhere specific. They are chasing a figure that has nothing to do with their actual spending. Your retirement target is not the national average target. It is your number. And your number comes from one formula. Take what you spend annually, multiply it by 25. That is your target. If you spend $50,000 a year in retirement, you need $1.25 million. If you spend $40,000, you need $1 million. If you spend $65,000, you need $1.625 million. The 4% rule, which is the research-backed framework behind that multiplier, says that at 25 times your annual spending, a diversified portfolio can sustain inflation-adjusted withdrawals for 30 years with a high probability of success. This is the move that changes the frame. You stop chasing someone else's number and you start calculating your own. And your own number might be smaller than you think. Because in retirement, a lot of current spending disappears. The mortgage might be paid. The kids might be out of the house. The commuting costs vanish. The retirement contributions themselves, which right now might be $10,000 or $15,000 a year coming out of your paycheck, those stop. Your survival number is almost always lower than your current income. Let me introduce the second term here. This is what I call the median mirror. The idea is simple. When you measure yourself, use the median, not the mean. Use the middle of the distribution, not the top. The mean Mirage makes you feel behind. The median mirror shows you where you actually are. And where you actually are at 45 with $67,800 is exactly in the middle of the room. Not at the front, not at the back, the middle. The middle is recoverable. The middle has 20 years of compound interest ahead of it. The middle has catch-up contributions waiting. Here is the part that matters. Once you turn 50, the IRS changes the rules in your favor. The standard 401k contribution limit in 2025 is $23,500. But at 50 and older, you get an additional $7,500 in catch-up contributions for a total of $31,000 a year. If you are between 60 and 63, Secure 2.0 raises that catch-up even higher to $11,250 extra for a total of $34,750. The government built an acceleration lane into the tax code specifically for people who are in your situation. The system is not working against you in this window. It is working with you. The people who design retirement plans know that the 40s are chaotic. Mortgages, childcare, college tuition, aging parents. The 40s drain savings. The 50s are when that pressure often lifts. The catch-up window is built around that reality. Now I want to show you what the mean Mirage actually costs people. Not in dollars, in decisions. Imagine two people. Both are 45, both have $67,800 in their retirement account. One of them reads that the average is $188,000. She decides she is so far behind that the gap is unfixable. She stops contributing above the minimum. She figures that whatever she saves now will not matter anyway. She has already written herself off. Over the next 10 years, she contributes at half the rate she could have. The gap she was afraid of becomes real. She created it. The other person looks at the median. She sees that she is exactly in the middle. She is not behind. She's normal. And normal at 45 with 20 years of compound growth and a catch-up window opening at 50 is recoverable. She increases her contribution by $200 a month. Not a dramatic move, a small one. And that small move, compounded over 20 years, changes her retirement by roughly $52,000. Not because she found extra money, because she stopped believing a number that was lying to her. The median mirror does not make you rich. It removes the shame that was making you passive. And passivity at 45 is the only thing that actually breaks the math. Let me give you the protocol. 3 steps you can do this week. Step 1 is to find your real benchmark. Go to Vanguard's How America Saves report, which is publicly available and updated annually. Look at the median balance for your age bracket, not the average. Break that number down, then look at your own balance and see where you actually stand relative to the middle. If you are at or above the median, you are not behind. If you are below the median, you know exactly how large the real gap is, not the inflated one. Step 2 is to calculate your personal number. Open a spreadsheet or grab a napkin. Estimate what you actually spend each year in retirement, not what you earn now. Subtract the costs that disappear, the mortgage if it will be paid off, the retirement contributions themselves, the commuting costs. Multiply that survival number by 25. That is your target. If your number is $40,000 a year, your target is $1 million. If it is $55,000, your target is $1,375,000. You now have a real finish line, not a generic one from the internet. Step 3 is to activate the catch-up window. If you are already 50 or approaching it, check your current contribution rate and calculate the gap between what you're putting in and the IRS maximum. Even moving halfway toward the maximum creates meaningful compound growth over the following 15 years. Set up an automatic increase of $100 or $200 a month now, and schedule another review when you turn 50. The catch-up window is real. Most people never use it because they assume they are too far behind to bother. Here is the reframe I want to leave you with. You have been measuring your retirement in dollars. I want you to measure it in decisions you no longer have to make. At $67,800, compound interest is already working. That money is already employed. It is already generating returns that you did not earn by showing up to work. For every year you let it run the number of mornings, you will eventually wake up without a required income grows. Each dollar compounding right now is converting one more morning from mandatory to optional. The shame you have been carrying about retirement savings at 45 was built on the wrong benchmark. The mean Mirage made the average worker look like a failure. The median mirror shows you the truth. You are exactly where most people are. And most people at 45 have 20 years of the most powerful compounding of their financial lives still ahead of them. What does your personal number look like? Run the calculation this week. Drop it in the comments. Not your balance, just the target you calculated based on your actual spending. It helps everyone see what these numbers look like in real life. And if you are 40 to 55 trying to figure out whether the retirement math is actually broken or just miscommunicated, hit subscribe. We map this kind of math every day on Salary to Strategy. I am Thane.